Hi, I'm MJ, and this is the 10th house briefing for November 2nd, 2025. This is where I try and round up the information that we talked about during the week and give a forest view of it rather than deep into the trees. So without further ado, let's start talking about Trump and his China meeting. Well, no one thought he was really going to do well, and he didn't really do well. What happened was that China did come back and say that they might buy soybeans. I say might because they've said this before. They said this in 2020, and they didn't buy anything. So we'll have to see what comes of this. Now, Trump did come back and he took off some of the tariffs. So, in effect, who's the winner there and who's the loser? Well, China seems to be the winner and Trump is the loser. Now, next thing we have is Marjorie Green. Back, I believe it was August or September, when I did her charts, I said, yep, she's got the thing with the advocating for the victims, and she was standing up, but I wasn't sure if she was going to keep on standing up because she was going to have additional pressure put on her in the middle of October. Well, what happened in the middle of October? She did get additional pressure, but it wasn't from the victims. In effect, it was from her now starting to side with the Democrats about not so much the government shutdown, but the fact that her party doesn't have a health plan. So that's pretty important. So that was significant. Now, as to the victims, we did have that book released, which is by Virginia Gilfrey, I believe, and that is causing some controversy. But one thing we don't have is we don't have that person sworn into the House so they can, in effect, do the vote on releasing the Epstein files. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So Marjorie Green, yeah, she actually not only stood up for the victims and she didn't back down on that, she actually has another fight on her hands with her party, which is the health care, the subsidies. She's saying these are very expensive. Her party should be coming up with a plan. So that's pretty good. I'm amazed, in some ways speechless about that, but I did get it right that she was going to get additional pressure. I didn't say on what tone. The next one we have is Venezuela. And I had noted already that, yes, there were going to be a lot of saber rattling here. United States was going to be resorting to things like, these attacks that are not overt attacks. They're not really aggressive right in your face. What they are is, in effect, pretense against something else. So the United States is saying they're going in for what? The cartels, the drugs, and they're shooting up drug boats. Shooting up drug boats, I can't get here. And the reason being is that they don't know who's on these boats and they're shooting them up. Oh, by the way, let's come back to Marjorie Green for a minute. So far, she's winning. Okay, I don't know how long she's going to be able to last, but she's winning. So we'll come back to her again. So on Venezuela, yes, the people are, in effect, being fed propaganda from both the leader and propaganda from the United States. And the United States, I don't think is going to go to war with Venezuela. They would be able to attack the shoreline, but I don't see the United States being able to do well in areas away from the coast. Now, could they try and get the government's military, in effect, to change sides? They could. But I'm not seeing a lot of that yet. What I am seeing with Maduro is that, yeah, there are things that, in effect, the government is going to try, the United States government is going to try and maybe move him out of the way. But I don't think he's going to move easy. So it could be that he strikes some deal up that says, okay, I'm going to stay for a certain amount of time and then I'll leave. Or I may, if I do this stuff, I can stay. But yeah, the United States wants to move him out, but I don't think he's going to be an easy person to move out. But needless to say, he's going to have to be really careful because his military, some people in his military may have been approached by the United States. Okay, so we talked about Madero, and all of this I already discussed earlier. I said he's going to have this stuff coming down, and, it's sort of like, yeah, he might be able to, push the can down the road a little bit, but not too much further. Now, we've got Oregon. I was mentioning that there was going to be pressure in the later days of October, and that, their case, in effect, going through the courts would probably have significant bearing on what's going to happen. And that's still in play. And what judges decide on that is going to be significant. Next thing I had talked about, and this was actually a while back, this was Erica Kirk. And I had noted that she had some really good angles coming up on around 10, 28, 25. And I thought maybe if, she's going into a business thing or whatever, it could be good. Well, it seems that, she did some, a little bit more than hand-holding with the VP Vance. And this was on camera and everything else. So everyone's sort of abuzz on that. So where is she heading? Well, if that was any indication, she's probably looking for another person to come into her life. And she has gotten a lot of flack on that. It's only been, 6 weeks or so since the death of her husband. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I did want to know, yeah. So right now there is some stuff where she's looking at where she's going to have the most opportunities. And I think maybe going in the direction of possibly marrying another politician is not something that is not off her list. Next thing I had mentioned about Stephen Miller. And this goes with the Portland and the Chicago court cases. I mentioned around the last week in October, he was literally going to be, some of his judgment, and he might be used as a scapegoat. And that's still possible. We're just not seeing it because some of this stuff is being done under the covers. So there is a lot of stuff going on about the type of tactics that the departments are using, Homeland Security and so on, and ICE. So that's still not done. Now, I did mention the elections last week. I'm going to mention them again. I noted the New Jersey, the Virginia, New York election. Nothing has changed since I did this way back around, August, September timeframe. I see for the New York election, I see Mondami. He's been, nothing has changed that I would expect that his poll numbers would be much different. New Jersey, same thing. I see the Democrat taking that, maybe not with as big of a margin as everyone expects, but still taking it. Virginia, I see the Democrat also taking that. One thing I am a little nervous about is that I had noted back previously that there will be troops around in Virginia. And we had that with the military coming in for the meeting, but I'm nervous about troops being at the polling sites. So that might be something to be aware of when it comes to Tuesday timeframe. Now, I talked about the Maine election this week. And this was for the primary for the Democrats. And that's coming up on 6/9. The two candidates, Janet Mills, and we have Graham Plattner. Now, Mills is going to be approximately 78, 79. She's been very effective Democratic person. She's been governor of the state of Maine. Problem is, again, she's coming in at such a late time that if she, serves the whole term, it's going to be 6 years. So we're looking at mid-80s. That's going to be bearing on people's minds. Doesn't matter if you say that age shouldn't matter. It has mattered in the Democratic Party. We've had the issue with Ruth from the Supreme Court, Diane, the senator from California, and we've had other people that stayed long after they were effective. Now, so I'm not seeing anything different with the elections. Again, just excuse me, with the main elections, I think right now, I think Plattner is in a good position. If nothing changes significantly, he's likely going to win it. But the problem is in February, he's got quite a few angles that are coming up that could say, oh, okay, something else is going to come up. Maybe his temper, his quick to act, is a factor. But then again, Janet Mills also has stuff coming up in April. So it's not just Plattner. So it could be that she reconsiders a run. Could be something coming up, maybe a little bit of a health scare that sort of really brings home the point that she's, on the older side. And there's nothing that shows that she couldn't do the job now. But you have to say, okay, what are the chances of something happening going down the line? Now, we talked about the hit list. I decided I needed to do that just to sort of say, okay, who has, and this is literally about Pluto angles, Pluto control, coming to any of these people that might need to be concerned. So who has Pluto angles? Well, we've got Jack Smith, and his is not till February. But Jack Smith is smart enough that I think he would have put some of this stuff away. So I think the the Trump administration would be poking a hornet's nest if they went after him. I could be wrong. Adam Schiff, yes, I think something's going to stop probably coming down later this month. Clinton, yeah, probably next month. We've got also Mark Milley, General Milley. His and Liz Cheney, Michael Cohen all have Pluto angles coming up in the next few months. People that don't, that I'm not seeing anything, is George Conway, Christopher Wray, Adam Kinzinger. So those people I'm not seeing anything, at least up until February, March of next year. Next thing is on the rep from Arizona. When is she going to be sworn in? Well, the best I can make out, and I didn't do a chart on this, looking at, because I'm trying to look at when the shutdown might end and using that as a time that she might be sworn in. And right now, the date I'm sort of coming up with might be November 14th. Now, as to the shutdown, so what are we looking at? Well, first off, that continuing resolution was only meant to fund the government till 11/21/2025. So in effect, they should have been having some type of bill that they're working on to fund the government going from 11/22 going forward. So the fact that that hasn't been done, that people haven't been working on it, and that would be the GOP, that's, to me, an issue that no one has been bringing up, and I'm not sure why they haven't. Because it means no one's been working on it in the past, 5 weeks. Now, when I'm looking at the shutdown, one of the dates that seems more firmer is around 12/5 to 12/10. 12/5, the United States has some nice angles. 12/10, Trump has some nice angles. But I went and I started looking at Adelita, which is the representative from Arizona. And I started looking at her chart, and I'm saying, well, maybe if everything's opened, she will get sworn in. And then if everything's open, maybe a deal was arrived at. So what I started seeing is actually there's a little period here where the Senate might be able to do something on around the 11th of November. The president might be sort of prone to also agree with that around the 13th. And both the Dems and the Republicans might be on board with that around the 13th or the 14th. So right now, and I mean, it's just not looking positive this week, and the 13th, 14th would be the end of next week. So that's the next time I'm looking at. I mean, there may be some small period here that sort of fits in that they can do something, but I'm not positive about that. So on the shutdown, who's winning on this case? Well, it's going to be in effect, I think right now the Dems are going to be winning because you've got a lot of the GOP now starting to talk about the fact that the rates are going up so high. So just that one piece of it, that the rates need to be somehow discussed and identified, signals a win for the Democrats. Whether or not they keep, able to keep the government shut or whatever until they get the agreement, they've got the GOP talking about that. Now, when we're looking at the hit list, most of the people I was looking at are still okay, sort of okay. They've got, even though they've got, Pluto angle indicating something difficult, they've got other angles indicating they might be able to come out of it. Now on, and the other ones, Stephen Miller, I think he's losing power. Erica Kirk, yeah, she's getting power. She's getting very talked about. Oregon, I think they can actually get power. So it depends on what the court decision is. Okay. Now coming back to the shutdown, I had noted last week that I thought that the Senate, people in the Senate were talking about it, and specifically they were concerned about the food stamps. And that's exactly what's been happening. The GOP are concerned about that. So they are starting to talk, even though they're talking not at the leadership level, they're talking at a lower level. And they're also talking about the health care. So this stuff is coming through. Now, I did note in last week's 10th house that we would have that happening, and that has been happening. I also noted that we would have a court decision coming down that was somehow associated with this, but maybe on the thing of another part of it. What came down, though, was on the SNAP. So, in effect, the court said, yeah, they have to pay out the SNAP. They can't have something for an emergency, and they're not using it for an emergency. So, is there anything different than what I expected? Well, I had hoped that Trump would be around so we would be able to finish off the shutdown, open that up. But he wasn't around. So we just have to look for better dates that he can actually do something along with the House and, the Senate leadership, along with the parties involved, to actually move that through. And some of the things that are happening, like the air traffic controllers, that's what caused the last shutdown, the long one, to actually have to terminate. And that's because literally, it was getting to a point where it might be unsafe. So I hope you enjoyed this and have a great evening. Bye now.